Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Rabia Salim, lecturer urology, and I am going to present the topic of prostatitis today. What is prostatitis? It is the infection or the inflammation of the prostate gland. The historical perspective includes it is the primary form of therapy for prostatitis during most of the 20th century was repetitive prostatic massage. In 1930s, antimicrobial therapy became the mainstay of therapy with the introduction of sulfanilamide. And in 1960s, Mayer's and Stemmy's 4-glass urinary tract segmented localization study was described. The most common urologic diagnosis in men younger than 50 years, and it is the third most urologic diagnosis in men older than 50 years after benign prostatic hyperplasia and prostate cancer. The participants with a previous diagnosis of prostatitis had a much higher cumulative probability of subsequent episodes of prostatitis. The prevalence of prostatitis-like symptoms ranges from 2 to 16%, with a median prevalence rate approximating 7% for chronic prostatitis and chronic pelvic pain syndrome. However, it accounts for 6 to 8% of outpatient visits from men to the urologists. Histopathologically, prostatitis is defined as an increased number of inflammatory cells within the prostatic parenchyma. Prostatic inflammation may or may not be noted in patients with the diagnosis of prostatitis, benign prostatic hyperplasia, or prostate cancer. The most common pattern of inflammation noted on histopathology is lymphocytic infiltrate within the stroma immediately adjacent to the prostatic acini. Corpora malacia is the deposition of the prostatic secretions around a sloughed epithelial cell or other irritant and are not usually associated with inflammation unless they become large enough to distend or obstruct the prostatic gland. Granulomatous prostatitis is the non-specific and variable histologic pattern typified by heavy lobular mixed inflammatory infiltrates that include abundant histiocytes, lymphocytes, and plasma cells. It is a common consequence of surgery or BCG therapy, but a rare event in patients with systemic tuberculosis. There are multiple factors which lead to the prostatitis, which include microbiology. And in microbiology, we go for the bacterial invasion. Gram-negative bacterial invasion include 60 to 80% E. coli, with Pseudomonas cerevisiae and Klebsiella accounts for 10 to 15% of the gram-negative bacterial infections. Gram-positive bacteria include 5 to 10% of the total infections. However, the others are Corynebacterium, Ureaplasma, etc. A newer concept is that it may not be the specific type of the bacteria, but the virulence of the bacteria in men with chronic pelvic pain syndrome may be greater, which resulting in symptoms or even causing the symptoms that persist after the eradication of the bacterial organism. And bacterial virulence or the invasion occurs that the bacteria have the pili or the fimbriae which attach to the urothelial lining, which cause the penetration of the organism or the ascending infection. That's how the pathogenesis occurs. The symptom patterns for the patients who develop chronic pelvic pain syndrome associated with the previous bacterial infection may be different from those in patients who develop the syndrome not related to the previous infection. The second etiological factor is the altered prostate host defense mechanism, which include the secretory dysfunction, results in decrease in the fructose, citric acid, acid phosphatase, zinc, magnesium, and calcium. However, it causes an increase in the pH ratio of the LDH5, increased ratio of LDH5 to LDH1, ceruloplasmin complement 3. Increase in the pH where the alkaline medium causes, there is a hamper in the antimicrobial diffusion and leads to the delayed treatment of the acute infection. It has further been suggested that the metabolic syndrome and endothelial dysfunction with arterial stiffness may be the risk, mechanistic, or associated factors, likely through the alteration of the inflammatory pathways. Dysfunctional voiding. Anatomic or neurophysiologic obstruction resulting in high pressure dysfunctional outflow patterns has been implicated in the pathogenesis of prostatitis syndrome. On video urodynamic studies, many patients with prostatitis syndrome show incomplete funneling of the bladder neck as well as vesicourethral dyssynergic patterns. Intraprostatic ductal reflux. Reflux of the urine and possibly bacteria into the prostatic ducts has been postulated as one of the causative mechanisms involved in the pathogenesis of the chronic bacterial and non-bacterial prostatic inflammation in some individuals. This happens mostly in the peripheral zone of the prostate because of the horizontal orientation of the ductal acini. Prostatic calculi are composed of the substances found only in the urine but not in the prostatic secretions. Prostatic calcification is common in patients with non-bacterial chronic prostatitis and is associated with higher inflammation, bacterial colonization, pelvic floor spasm, and symptom duration. The inflammation resulting from chemical, bacterial, or immunologic stimulation has been shown to possibly cause an increase in intraprostatic pressures, measurable with transperineally inserted pressure transducers. Immunologic alterations in bacterial prostatitis, in acute bacterial prostatitis, serum and prostatic fluid antigen specific immunoglobulin G and immunoglobulin A can be detected immediately after the infection, and after successful antibiotic therapies, the level decline after 6 to 12 months. Prostate-specific antigen levels can be markedly elevated during an acute episode of bacterial prostatitis, and they slowly resolve to normal levels over the course of 6 weeks to many months, provided that there is no recurrence of the infection. In chronic bacterial prostatitis, no serum immunoglobulin level is detected, whereas prostatic fluid immunoglobulin A and G both are increased. After successful antibiotic therapy, immunoglobulin G levels return to normal after several months, but immunoglobulin A levels remain elevated for almost 2 years. The presence of antibody-coated bacteria detected in the urine, express prostatic secretion, and semen is another prominent feature of chronic bacterial prostatitis. Interleukin 8 is the most common cytokine localized to the semen in men with chronic prostatitis. The sensory and the motor disturbances, or both, they are consistent with the neural dysregulation of the lower urinary tract, may be a consequence of acquired abnormalities in the central nervous system. Basically, these pelvic muscles, they attach to the sacrum, coccyx, perineal body, pubic tuberosities and ischial tuberosities, and these are the areas which are around the bladder and the prostate. They cause some myofascial trigger point over there due to the spasm of the nerves or the muscle spasm over there, which causes pain around these areas, and the patient experiences pain with movement or other and associated with other symptoms like urinary retention, like chronic constipation, like delayed emptying, all these things. Sometimes we have also seen that the pudendal nerve entrapment also causes the neuropathic pain. Non-bacterial prostatitis and chronic pelvic pain syndromes, they are caused by an intercalated cascade of inflammatory, immunologic, endocrine, muscular, neuropathic, and psychologic mechanisms that begin with an initiated in a genetically or anatomically susceptible man. So these are all the multi-factors which lead to the prostatitis and chronic pelvic pain syndrome in patients. This is the flow chart which shows that there must be some initiation point. There must be some triggering point like infection, immunogen in the form of intraductal reflux, some toxins, UTI, trauma, stress. They lead to some response. Response can be in the form of inflammation or the neurologic injury. But these all leads to the neuroendocrine mechanisms, and with the persistence of the symptoms, they lead to a chronicity and they cause the immunologic and neurogenic responses, and the final outcome results in the neuropathic pain in most of the patients. This is the clinical classification and the presentation of the patient which is summarized in this table. This is category 1. Chronic like prostatitis has been divided into 4 categories. Category 1 is acute bacterial prostatitis. It is the acute infection of the prostatic gland, and this is the severe form in which the patient comes with in a very toxic form, and this needs to be it needs attention, prompt attention. Chronic bacterial prostatitis, which it is a category 2, in which there is long-term infection of the prostate gland. Category 3 has been divided into 2. It is inflammatory and non-inflammatory. In inflammatory form, WBCs are seen in the express prostatic secretion. However, in non-inflammatory, there are insignificant bacteria or insignificant WBC count seen in the express prostatic secretion or the voided volume 3. And the category 4 is asymptomatic inflammatory prostatitis, which is usually a histological diagnosis. We evaluate the patient on the basis of the symptom complex, analysis of specific prostatitis-like symptoms, the quality of life, the patient's functional status, and the patient's satisfaction with the medical care. The NIH Chronic Prostatitis Collaborative Research Network, CPCRN, developed a reproducible and valid instrument in order to measure the symptoms and the quality of life of patients with chronic prostatitis for use in research protocols as well as clinical practice. The final chronic prostatitis symptom index consists of 9 questions that address the 3 most important domains of the chronic prostatitis experience, which are pain, urinary function, and quality of life. This is the questionnaire. This is the pain having 4 questions, urination having 2 questions, and impact of symptoms and quality of life having 3 questions. Questions of pain include that what was the frequency of the pain, what were the areas involved, perineal or genital, and was it associated with the urinary symptom, and how would you give the score to it according to the pain score. These are the questions. And on urination, we usually ask the patient about the incomplete emptying and the frequency of the patient. And impact of quality of life is whether these symptoms are making him whether these symptoms cause difficulty in doing his routine works, or whether he is satisfied with all these symptoms or not. So we have to score all these things. And then we classify the symptoms into mild, moderate, severe categories, and the final score is, and maximum score is 21, and 0 to 7, 8 to 17, and then 21. On physical examination, the category 1 which is acute bacterial prostatitis. The patient is systemically toxic, as I mentioned earlier. He'll be febrile, tachycardic, tachypneic, hypotensive. He needs admission. He would have suprapubic discomfort. He may present with acute urinary retention. Usually, we do not do the DRE of these patients who present with acute bacterial prostatitis because of bacteremia, but in sometimes we go for the DRE, but very gentle DRE, and on gentle DRE we find there's a hot, boggy, tender prostate. The symptoms of category 2 and 3, they are insignificant. They present with discomfort or general perineal pain. Mears and Stemy described the 4-glass test in order to distinguish the urethral, bladder, and prostate infections in men with chronic prostatitis. Voided bladder 1, VB1. It is the initial 10 ml of the urine. It usually tells us on the urethral organisms. It usually tells us about the urethral organisms. Voided volume 2 is the midstream urine, which is the next 200 ml of urine, and it usually tells us about the bladder pathogens. This is the prostatic massage, and after the prostatic massage, these are the expressed prostatic secretions, and we collect it in a container and we get them cultured, so we can get the organisms. And this is the voided volume 3, just after the express prostatic massage. This classification system usually tells us about the category 2 and 3. Acute bacterial prostatitis is not included in this thing because we cannot go for express prostatic massage in cases of acute bacterial prostatitis. In category 2, the chronic bacterial prostatitis, it is diagnosed if there is a 10-fold increase in the bacteria in the express prostatic secretion or the VB3 specimen compared with the VB1 and VB2 specimens. We can say that there are the positive bacteria in the VB3 and EPS. Category 3A, chronic pelvic pain syndrome is diagnosed when there is no uropathogenic bacteria cultured, but there is excessive leukocytosis noted in the prostate-specific specimens or VB3 both. There will be leukocytosis, but in category 3B, there is no uropathogenic bacteria are cultured and there is no significant leukocytosis noted in the microscopic examination of EPS or the sediment of VB3. The pre-massage and the post-massage test, also known as the 2-glass test, originally suggested by Wedner and Abner and popularized by Nickel, is a simple, cost-effective screen to categorize the patients with chronic prostatitis, and it is 91% sensitive and specific compared to the gold standard Mears-Stemy test. It includes the pre-massage urine and the post-massage urine samples, and it also gives the same results like that of the 4-glass Mears-Stemy test, but it is cost-effective and less cumbersome to the patient. Other evaluating tools include the microbiology, in which we get the culture of the prostatic secretions and the voided volumes, the cytology. Urodynamic is indicated only when there is decreased peak and mean flow rates, and it also tells us about the urodynamic problems of the lower knee tract, like in elevated urethral closing pressures. It also tells us about the urethral narrowing at the EUS and elevated urethral pressures. Endoscopy is not indicated routinely. It is only indicated when there is a positive history, when there is a history of lower knee tract symptoms, or possibly there is some other diagnosis than prostatitis. Ultrasound is not that much sensitive or specific. However, we can get inhomogeneous echo structures with constant dilatation of the periprostatic venous plexus and elongated seminal vesicles. along with the thickening of the internal septa. But again, it is operator dependent. And prostate biopsy is only indicated when there is an abnormal DRE or elevated PSA. Otherwise, we do not go for the prostate biopsy in the patient in the evaluation for prostatitis. Sometimes patients present to us with seminal vesicle infection. So we evaluate the seminal vesiculitis by means of positive ejaculate culture, seminal vesiculography, transrectal ultrasonography, computed tomography, magnetic resonance imaging, and a newer modality which is technetium-99 ciprofloxacin radioisotope scan. This is the flow chart of evaluation of a patient with chronic pelvic pain syndrome. The mandatory things are whenever a patient comes with these histories, we have in our outpatient clinic, we have to take a detailed history, physical examination, which includes a DRE and the pelvic floor muscle examination as well. Urine analysis and midstream urine culture, these are the mandatory things which need to be done in any patient. If patient has recurrent UTIs or the positive cultures, then it lands in the category 2 chronic bacterial prostatitis. And in that case, we recommend that 2-glass test, cytology, and the flow rate and the residual volume measurement. And still the diagnosis is not confirmed, we need to go for some other things which are not routinely recommended. But if the patient presents with hematuria, we should go for cystoscopy. Urodynamic is only indicated when there is obstructive urinary symptoms. For sexually transmitted infections, we go for the urethral discharge cultures, and TRUS, MRI, CT scan are only indicated when there is abnormality of some other test. Semen analysis and semen culture only when there is a foul smelling semen or there is a discoloration of the semen. And PSA, as I mentioned earlier, in case of abnormal DRE or risk factors or age more than 45 years, or psychological and behavioral evaluation if the patient has some psychomotor disorder, and 4-glass test if the bacteria localized in the 2-glass test. This is also explaining the same thing, that the mandatory thing is history, physical examination, which include DRE, pelvic floor assessment, urine analysis, and culture. Recommended is 2-glass, symptom, chronic prostatitis symptom index, sexual functioning assessment, flow rate, residual volume, and urine cytology. These are the things which are recommended in only special cases like 4-glass urinary evaluation, semen analysis culture, in order to rule out STIs, pressure flow studies, transrectal ultrasound of the prostate, and imaging and prostate-specific antigen. In 2009, a clinically practical phenotypic classification system of patients diagnosed with chronic pelvic pain syndrome and interstitial cystitis was proposed. U-point. It is a 6-point clinical classification system that categorizes the phenotype of the patients with urologic chronic pelvic pain syndrome into one or more of the 6 clinically identifiable domains, which are urinary, psychosocial, organ-specific, infection, neurologic, systemic, and tenderness. These are the 6 points. And the symptom severity was associated with the number of the identified domains. As the symptom duration increased, so did the positive domains. And U-point classification of the chronic prostatitis and chronic pelvic pain syndrome patients allows better description of individual phenotypes. Let's come to the treatment options. Antimicrobials are the most commonly prescribed treatment, which include penicillins, aminoglycosides, second and third generation cephalosporins, fluoroquinolones. In early 19s, Trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole was also used to be given in patient, but with the advent of the newer fluoroquinolones, sulfamethoxazole has been abandoned now because of the cost effectiveness and the longevity of the treatment. Chronic prostatitis caused by the E. coli treatment duration of 1 month for the fluoroquinolone seemed to be superior to the usual 3-month treatment with trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole. That was the reason that Ceftriaxone was abandoned. Antibiotics should be continued only for 4 to 6 weeks if pre-treatment cultures are positive and or the patient has reported positive effects from the treatment. Alpha blockers can also be given in order to improve the outflow obstruction, in order to improve the urinary flow, diminishing intraprostatic ductal reflux. Anti-inflammatory agents and immune modulators are given in order to reduce the local inflammation. Muscle relaxants are given to reduce the spasm of the pelvic floor muscles, and hormonal therapy in the form of 5-alpha reductase inhibitor is also given in few older patients in order to reduce the inflammation of the prostate gland. Prostatic massage is the principal therapy for prostatitis. Benefits are believed to arise from draining theoretically the occluded prostatic ducts and improving circulation and antibiotic penetration. Repetitive prostatic massage 2 to 3 times per week for 4 to 6 weeks along with the antibiotic therapy was recommended. But with the advent of the antimicrobial treatment, this has been abandoned now. And with the advent of the Mears and STEMI 4-glass test as well. In few patients, pelvic floor muscle physiotherapy is also indicated, and if the patient has a pudendal nerve entrapment, then we go for the pudendal nerve block and neurolysis surgery. And last but not the least, the lifestyle modification. There are some minimally invasive therapies like balloon dilatation, transurethral needle ablation, extracorporeal shockwave therapy for the pelvic muscles, and neuromodulation therapy, sacral nerve stimulation, percutaneous tibial nerve stimulation, and pudendal nerve stimulation. But these are also under consideration. These are not recommended as a specific treatment for any patient who comes with the symptoms of prostatitis. Few surgical procedures like anti-arc laser treatment with pelvic and sacral electromagnetic therapy and botulinum toxin A. Traditionally, we used to place suprapubic cystostomy in the patient with prostatitis in order to reduce the urethral discomfort because of the urethral catheter. And urethral catheter was also used to obstruct the prostatic ducts, which leads to the increased inflammation. So, in order to bypass that tract, suprapubic cystostomy was used to placed. Sometimes, in cases of prostatic abscesses, transurethral incision of the prostatic abscesses is done, and TURP is only indicated in relapsing or refractory chronic bacterial prostatitis patients. This is the flow chart. If the patient has a urinary symptoms like voiding or storage symptoms, we can offer him alpha blockers, anticholinergics, or diet modifications. If there is some psychosocial disorder to the patient, we can offer him behavioral therapy, antidepressants, anxiolytics, or appropriate referral to the rehabilitation units. If the symptoms are organ specific like prostate, then anti-inflammatory drugs can be given, and if the symptoms are related to the bladder, then it can be secondary to interstitial cystitis, so we can offer him pentosan polysulfate or intravesical therapy. If there is a culture positive organism is there, appropriate antibiotic is the management option. And the pain is of neuropathic origin, then gabapentin, amitriptyline, neuromodulation, acupuncture are the management option, and definitely we can refer the patient to the pain clinic. If there is pelvic muscle floor spasm, then we can offer him pelvic floor muscle physiotherapy, biofeedback, exercises, heat therapy, and extracorporeal shockwave therapies. And if there is some sexual dysfunction or pain, then we can offer him phosphodiesterase inhibitors. These are the recommended treatment options. Alpha blocker as a part of multimodal therapy in a newly diagnosed alpha blocker patients who have voiding symptoms and who respond to alpha blockers. Antimicrobial therapy for selected newly diagnosed patients. Selected phytotherapies we can also offer to the patient, and multimodal therapy is directed according to the clinical phenotype of the patient. The things which are not recommended, they are the alpha blocker monotherapy, particularly in a patient who are previously treated with alpha blockers. Anti-inflammatory monotherapy is not recommended. Antimicrobial therapy as a primary therapy, particularly for the patients in whom the treatments with antibiotics was failed previously. 5-alpha reductase inhibitor monotherapy can be considered in older patients with coexisting benign prostatic hyperplasia. Most minimally invasive therapies such as tuna laser therapies and invasive surgical therapies such as TURP and radical prostatectomy, these are not recommended. Low intensity shockwave treatment, they require further evaluation, acupuncture, biofeedback, electromagnetic stimulation, botulinum toxin A. These are the things which are under considerations and under evaluation for the treatment options for prostatitis. Thank you.
A very nice presentation.
Thank you.
So the diagnosis of prostatitis is basically usually a clinical diagnosis.
Yes.
So whenever the patient come to the clinic, then the history and examination is very important in all those patients. So whenever in an acute setting, the diagnosis is with the history and examination only.
Yes.
And you need to confirm your investigation diagnosis with the help of few investigation like urine analysis or sometime 2-glass test.
Yes.
And the diagnosis of chronic pelvic pain syndrome. So it's a diagnosis of exclusion.
Exactly.
So you need to think about the other diagnosis and you do certain investigations, whether radiological or some endoscopic, to rule out the other causes of symptoms.
Exactly.
So that's the reason these patients need to have more and more invasive modality for the purpose of diagnosis and the management.
Exactly.
So in these patients who had chronic pelvic pain syndrome, what is the newer type of treatment that is in a horizon that is commonly used in Western countries?
These are neuromodulation techniques.
So most commonly, these patients had neuropathic pain. This
Yes.
is the most common that affect the usual daily activity of these patients. And for the particular this purpose, patient came to the clinic. And sometimes psychosocial disorders can lead to sometime problem. So most of the patient came with the neuropathic pain. And what is the mean to do for these neuropathic pain apart from some analgesics? Or
These are neuromodulation, we can offer them. We can go for the nerve blocks like sacral nerve blocks or pudendal nerve blocks. So in that way, the perineal plexus or the nerves are blocked. That's how they do not feel the pain in the prostate or the bladder area.
right, that
Acupuncture is
but the neuromodulation is a very important way of treating these patients who had neuropathic pain, and the pelvic floor exercises. This has very good impact on the to allay the symptoms of these patients who had a neuropathic pain due to chronic pelvic pain syndrome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.